Hey guys, welcome back to the Bad Dating Podcast. I'm your host, Michael James. Today we are talking about gossip. Are you gossiping? Let's find out. Before we begin, please take the time to like, subscribe, follow me on podcast services, YouTube, comment, Facebook, TikTok, all these things. You can find us under Bad Dating Podcast. So, today's episode, I want to talk about gossip. I was inspired today because ran into some gossip and I thought, yeah, that kind of ruins people's dating. So let's dive into it. What is gossip and does it help you with dating? I don't think it does, but a lot of people do it. Why? Well, that's why we're going to talk about this. So, gossip is spreading information about other people and sharing it between others. Sometimes it's true. Maybe you heard the word on the curb. If you're a fan of Melissa Ford, she always likes to say that. But maybe you have heard something interesting about someone. Maybe you're making something up. Or maybe you just think something and you're sharing it. That's what gossip is. And I think it hurts people. I think it hurts people when it comes to dating because what happens is a lot of people will take gossip in and take that in as the truth. Because especially if you've been dating for a little bit, maybe you've been hurt. Maybe you've hurt someone. Or maybe you're just very much afraid of being hurt, which is unfortunately what a lot of dating is afraid to put yourself out there and afraid to connect with someone. And so you're going to try to do everything to get that little advantage to avoid getting hurt. And that little advantage sometimes is just information. The internet is full of information and most of it's crap. Sorry, I don't know if you guys knew this, but I think most of you did know this, that information on the internet is garbage. Not all of it, of course, but like a healthy amount. And that's what gossip can be. But instead of it being nebulous people just saying whatever, sometimes it can be friends, family, coworkers, lovers, people that you know, people that you don't know, the person at the corner store. So that's why I don't think it's all that relevant or all that helpful, because especially if you start looking for gossip, you spend more time looking for that than trying to learn things on your own about someone or when you're trying to date. So we've talked about online dating. We've talked about the fact that people look and start digging. People spend money on background checks, start doing all kinds of craziness when it comes to trying to get to know someone because they're afraid of all the potentials. And especially these days, if you grew up in the 80s, 90s, 2000s, you have been conditioned and trained to be afraid and to worry about what strangers do, strangers on the internet, strangers who pull up with, you say that they have candy. I mean, that was the thing that my parents always talked about is like, oh, if someone has candy or someone has a puppy. And I would always joke, even as a little kid, oh, I'd want to see the puppy first. And I make light of it, but it's that sort of fear that lends us into gossip. And sometimes we will take gossip in and not question it because it confirms the fear. So if someone tells you something that you kind of already thought maybe potentially, are you really going to question it? Or if maybe two people tell you the exact same thing, are you really going to question it? Some people, yes. A lot of people, no. And that's very unfortunate because what that can do, especially when it comes to dating, is it can ruin it. Because are you going to trust yourself or are you going to trust what someone else is telling you? So I love finding out when I'm the subject of gossip because oftentimes it's funny. People spend more time talking about you than worrying about themselves. Literally, I just saw someone today and one of the first things I overheard was them talking about old gossip and other stuff, and it's in reference to me. And I'm just like, oh, geez, like you're still in that high school mentality. Honestly, everyone should spend their time focused on themselves, trying to better themselves, worry about their own life. If someone's not immediately in your day, like why do I care about what happened to the milkman or whatever? Some people, that's the way that they live their lives. And that's kind of sad because, especially in comparison, like, man, you spend so much time thinking about me. And just like, especially if we've never dated, if we've never talked, if we've never done anything, to me, that's funny. Again, I have a weird sense of humor and not everyone will appreciate it, but I think it's funny. But I have seen that gossip can be one of those things that people allow to get in the way of talking to someone because, hey, my best friend told me something that maybe that they heard, maybe that they seen, maybe that they just feel. And that's the problem. And sometimes you can let that gossip get in the way of you discovering, learning, and allowing something new to happen. So, touched on the fact that sometimes that happens, and especially when it comes to dating, it's very easy. Again, high school, college, bars, any of the regular places that you get to know people, there's always going to be gossip. And unfortunately, the people who are always touching the gossip, who are always, hey, well, I heard this, or like those people, I'm always like curious, like, do you have anything like fulfilling in your life? Because you're spending more time talking about someone else. Like, hey, take the time to learn a new language, travel, push yourself, challenge yourself, live your life. I mean, I don't know, watch a soap opera if you want drama. So many people put too much faith in gossip. And I have personally seen where it's just like, hey, the person who started the gossip or who participated in it sprinkled in some lies because who was going to know? Who's going to know? And then no one's going to call them out on it. Especially, so guys, do we gossip? In some situations. Ladies, do you gossip? In other situations. Guys and girls both do it. It's just kind of depends on to what level and what's the cause. So, in the workplace, it's unfortunately bound to happen. Avoid those people who love to get involved in gossip. I know it's hard because sometimes they're going to tell you something juicy and they're going to say like, "Oh, I heard that," and just like, does it matter? Like, you want to participate in the gossip just because, oh, it's something interesting or something scandalous. But just like, again, what are you doing for yourself? So like, I'm not trying to, this episode wasn't even about gossip and trying to say like, oh man, you shouldn't. It's like, yeah, the people who are spreading gossip, live their life that way past high school into their 20s, into their 30s, and their 40s, and their 50s. Like, we can't fix those people, but we can fix everyone else who like is around it and like gets sucked into their nonsense, sucked into their bullshit. And so like, you have to make the choice of like, hey, I'm not gonna like, I can be in on the gossip. Some people are conduits of the gossip. They get told and they spread it. Other people are the endpoints. You may be listening to this and thinking, hey, I am not going to like spread this nonsense or whatever, but like, I'm wide open to hear all of it and like tell me about all these people, all these things going on. And just like, how does that help you when it comes to dating? It's bad dating. I promise you. Just think about this. What was your ideal situation when it comes to dating? Was it, hey, well, my friend said this, or I heard this, or any of this other stuff? I've never seen people who engage in gossip and are really actually like happy. Sometimes the people who start all the gossip they do this because they're missing out on pieces of themselves, and filling it with entertainment, drama, or being a part of the drama is all they have. Like, truthfully, like, you can be married and have kids, and like being caught up in other people's nonsense is the defining thing of your life. When people like look at it, like, you spend more time talking about the guy at the coffee shop, the girl at the Starbucks, than your spouse, than your kids, than whatever. That's why, again, you can't fix that person. But if you are around these people, like, people hate to hear it, but sometimes you have to cut people out of your life, especially if they are the gossip. Why? Because what are they adding to your day? Like, oh, entertainment. Yes. And then it keeps you revolving in that circle of bullshit that holds you down, that keeps you stuck in the mud. Trust me, I love this one quote that I'm going to butcher, but probably been said by many people, but I love the fact that Jay-Z's attributed to it in some degree. You're never going to hear someone doing better than you talking about you. It is literally only going to be like the person who's worse off. Why? Well, yeah, they're worse off than you. You don't have Bill Gates gossiping online about the person at the convenience store in some sort of stupid conspiracy. You have the person in the convenience store online talking about Bill Gates because that's more interesting and is finding that fulfillment. I've seen gossip ruin relationships or ruin people starting off dating because that became the focus. Like, hey, for me, and this ties back into social media and dating apps and all this other stuff. So gossip these days, where are you going to run into it? First, online, social media apps. It's very easy to say like, oh, well, we have the same friends. Let me stalk them on social media. If you're ladies, you love to do stalking or research or finding out, connecting through social media. Guys, you do it too. It's both parties do it. So that's why I'm just adamant that it's something that both sides need to knock off, because does it really help? What are the real benefits? Hey, I found out this thing that someone did a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And then did I get the whole story? Oh no, I got a piece of the story. Oh, I'm going to talk to their ex. Or I heard from a friend that their ex said this, that, and the other. But then, was it the full story? Really, was it? Usually it wasn't. And that's kind of the point, and that's the problem with gossip, is if you can't say it and bring it to the person who's involved and get their, like, the full side of it, are you really going to take the one side that maybe it's just, again, two people involved, especially in a relationship these days, it could be three people. But are you really going to take half or a quarter of what one side says and take it as the truth? So I mentioned these groups online, these Are We Dating the Same Guy groups. Gossip Central. That is one of the things that happens so much these days. And I've seen it where it's like been posts on me, and then I come with receipts because I realize, why is it okay? Yeah, I did talk with these people. Oh man, this person 5 years ago. This person 2 years ago. This person I talked to like for 5 minutes. Okay, cool, whatever. And then it is part of the story of what happened that kind of makes them look better than what the receipts of the proof of the text messages or the whatever may suggest. Because it's very it's very common to want to make yourself look like the hero of your own story, especially a story that you're telling to someone. Oh my God. Yeah, this person did this and this person did this and they did all this other stuff and they're a jerk. He's an asshole. She's a bitch. But is that true? I mean, that's what gossip gets fed on. You hear these things and it sounds great. It's just like, oh my God, I'm going to tell this. But like I said, for me, I've seen that. That's why I'm not a big fan of these groups, or I'm not a big fan of when people do this. Like for me, when I date, I absolutely try to avoid dating my friend groups. Why? Because that way there's no drama after the fact. So I'm talking to someone. Hey, they're great. Things happen. Oh my God, there's passion. Oh, get their clothes off after a great couple dates. We're seeing each other. And then, oh my God, 6 months later and it doesn't work out. Oh man, this sucks. Okay, well, deuces later. And I don't have to see them. They don't have to see me. And it's done. Versus I've seen people who date in such small circles where it's just like, you keep seeing your ex at the parties, at the family get-togethers, at the things, like in these uncomfortable situations where it's just like, especially if you don't really have to, why would you? And then because, they're going to say or do something that may get to you, or someone's going to think that you would really want to know this little piece of information that for some reason it's going to I have to tell you this because I saw them, they were doing this. And this goes back to, hey, did you get the full story or did you just get a piece of it? And that's kind of the problem, is a lot of times you get the piece of it and you kind of miss out on the full breakdown where it's just like, so you're seeing someone. Here, actually, story time. So this is Bad Dating 101. This is one of the reasons why I don't really date too many drinkers. But it's like I drank, I went to party school, go Aztecs, but I really don't drink. And so, I got into fitness, I've taken things to a whole new level. But one of the big reasons why I learned, I can't really date a drinker. I dated someone who, they always drank. Always. To the point where it's just Saturday morning and you're alone. Ooh, it's after work and whatever. And then, so you can't drive, of course, because you've been drinking, you're being responsible. But just are you just drinking alone? So, seeing each other for a little bit. And there were issues. But hey, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. And she would always get on me about me not drinking. And I was just well, first someone has to drive. But, I'm just not that into it. But, this was during COVID. I was oh man, we've been seeing each other for a little bit. I don't want you to always feel like, hey, we can't have fun with that. So we planned a Vegas trip and it was going great until we were the couple by the fountain. And what I say by that is for me, for some reason, I've always had a picture in my head of in Vegas, there were couples that are just fighting or arguing by a big fountain in Vegas. I mean, some things I've seen in person. And then when it was happening to me, where it was just we'd been drinking, enjoying time, having a great time in Vegas. And then, hey, we got off the Ferris wheel. It's okay, it's late. Let's get food. Okay, there's less options. I've been drinking, but also I can drink a lot. So it's kind of not really impacting me. So I'm just all right, well, hey, here's where we can go. Here's some spots. It's a little bit later. And if we leave now, we can get there. We can sit down, eat, do these nice things before the restaurant closes. Cool. We were getting there, and then my partner was drunk and kept getting distracted. I'm just hey, trying to redirect. I'm hey, let's get back to getting food because, I'm hungry, you're hungry, and all this other stuff. And then it became like that thing that drunk people do is where they stop, especially if they want to fight or argue or whatever. And then when we were by the fountain and then like arguing and stuff, and I was just like, oh my God, I went on a trip with someone and we're doing this, and I'm sober, and I'm just mad that I'm the couple by the fountain. But cut to, yeah, I'm back at the hotel room. They want to stay out. I was like, okay, cool. When they were having issues, still like made sure to help get them into the hotel room, got them taken care of. Had like 2 more nights. I was like, oh my God, this is gonna be like, at that point it's already kind of like over for me. But like, I'm still gonna be respectful. I'm still gonna handle this well. Fast forward to we get back in town, drop them off at the car, get that break. Talked with him about the drinking, and it was like, oh, hey, this is like a problem for me. They kind of like drink a lot. It's like, this is kind of why we had that fight. And we had this long conversation, first via text, which I hate doing, and then in person. I was like, okay, this is great. And I've already expressed that, like, the kind of constant drinking is a problem for me. And then I go to kiss them, and they taste like alcohol, and so we break up. So what does this have to do with gossip? Ooh, so that was funny. Fast forward a couple years, one of her friends is saying gossip about me. We're hearing like, oh, well, I heard how they broke up and all this other stuff. And it was like painting me as the bad guy. I was like, did you really hear how we broke up? Because I was like, I thought I still helped her get to the room and still was like great to her while we're in Vegas away, and then tried to talk with her after, and then broke up because she was hiding drinking from me. And I was like, yeah, I'm not doing lies and alcohol. That's fine. But like, someone was just sharing half of the story, and it was like, yes, I'm the asshole. I have no problem. That's why I started a podcast. It's bad dating. There's gonna be times where it was me and it was them. It's fine. But I can take that responsibility. But that's the thing with gossip is it makes it very easy to avoid accountability. Because like, if people start telling the story and they're the good guy or the good girl and they did nothing wrong, wow, if you're a friend, family member, you should believe that person. It's incumbent upon you to believe that person. And you're really not going to want to hear otherwise. And that makes sense. But then you're forgetting the part where it's just like, was that all that really happened? So to the people that her friend had told, like, yeah, it was just terrible. I was like, cool. I mean, people heard that gossip and ran with it. And then some people, again, just didn't believe him because it's like, it doesn't kind of jive some of the stuff that was said, but the person still believed it and was still comfortable saying it. So like, for me, that's an anecdotal experience. That doesn't mean, oh my God, this was whatever. And you could probably come up with a story of the time where you heard some gossip and it was 100% true. And then you saw it and there's a tape and it was uploaded and whatever. Yeah, that may be the case. But that's the problem with gossip, is sometimes you just don't know. And these days, unless you have video proof or text messages, and like these days, like I will always be the first one to say like, hey, what did someone say? Because when I catch wind of someone like just saying lies, I love to just, makes me so happy to when I can find that out. And if it was ever anything via text message, because like I hate texting about some things and stuff, but if there's anything via text message, I love to just bring that text message up on my phone and then just say, oh, hey, so this is what they said. Oh, that's what they told you? Because like, well, here are the messages. I literally have no problem like just sharing everything about that stuff, because it kind of avoids issues, and it kind of like punches holes in some of the gossip and the bullshit that people say. because some people spend their whole time just, carefully coding over aspects of the story that like take the rough edges off. Which is like, oh, it sounds like you did nothing. So like I just told the story of, oh, the ex that I broke up with after a trip in Vegas. It's just like, oh, did I do everything right? I was like, again, no. And hopefully it wasn't making myself sound like, oh, he just did everything right and he did nothing wrong. Because it's just like, yes, especially if you're sober and you know the person's kind of intoxicated, you should probably like, it should be easier for you to like, hey, I understand, and then like be in control. But like for me, it was like the thought of being that couple by the fountain, like that for me, that's what was getting me mad at a certain point. Was just like, Jesus Christ, like why are we talking about, like, and that's not a great way to handle things. I was like, I can fully take responsibility for like, yeah, man, my buttons are getting pressed by just being in that situation and being able to understand that. And and I've told people who've asked about the dating and the gossip from that story when it comes to like, hey, why didn't it work out when you were seeing so and so? I was just like, yeah, because of this. And it's just like, yeah, I mean, I was just mad because I was just a couple by the fountain. And in my head, like, that just stuck out to me, where it's just like, oh. But like, I hopefully have never made it out to sound like I did nothing. Like, yeah, I should have been able to be responsible and say like, hey, you're drunk. We're not going to fight. You're right. Or say some of those things that like you think that you should say. It's like, no, I'm human. I make mistakes. But that's why the problem with gossip is sometimes people smooth off those edges when it comes to what actually happened in a situation. And I've seen that time after time, like, where people will just say these things. And then especially when you find out that's a one-off, where it's some situation where someone wasn't happy and they said it, and then that's just that. And then you see the situations where it's the same little chatty Cathy who is always involved in everyone's gossip. And just like, yeah, some of these people need to get a hobby, get a life, get more of a life, spend time with your kids, do something else than just gossip. It's very easy to, especially thanks to social media, especially thanks to text messaging and communication, and just these days, people see gossip as like, that is a great way to get likes, attentions, clicks, and all this other stuff. I mean, there's certain podcasters that if you put their name in the title, you can for sure get clicks, because if you're like taking their side or bashing them, that is how, unfortunately, this era of things works, where you can just get a lot of attention, and you kind of have to like break through that, or being willing to like not engage in that. So like for this podcast, there's going to be times where I cover gossip if it is impacting dating in a negative way. Again, hence the title, Bad Dating. But if I have my way, I'm not going to try to mention people just for the sake of mentioning people. Like, it turns out one of my exes listens to this podcast, and she told me, and she's like, well, I haven't heard anything that sounded like me. I was just like, why would it? Like, it's very easy to think that you started a podcast about bad dating. Ooh, you're just going to get your shit off. And that's not what she said. I had told her, I was like, hey, I'm not doing this podcast to just get my shit off and like bag on people or just dog people out or whatever. It's like, man, I have these thoughts that I wanted to express and put out, and hopefully cultivate a following where people can like break away from just getting sucked into bad dating or bad dating habits. Like, hey, the reason why, coming back to the main topic, gossip. Some people use the thought of hunches as justification to gossip and justification to a lot of things. So the reason why gossip and hunches don't work well is because your hunch is your gut, and your gut is just based off of your learned experience. And so most people don't realize that they don't write down and record when their hunches were wrong or when they were wrong. So some people, I've seen lots of people say like, I should have went with my gut because my last ex, my last this, and didn't work out. And so then they start going with their gut or any time that they feel an uncomfortable feeling. And sometimes uncomfortability is where growth and opportunity for change lies. So if you're not happy when you're dating someone and you've been dating and then you break up, you go through that single process and then you meet someone new and you're like, it's very hard when you're meeting someone new to like put yourself out there or to be open again, especially if you had something, not necessarily great as your last experience. It's very hard. So like sometimes you have to like have reasonable expectations as to what to expect from the next relationship or the next person, the next date. It's like, yes, I've been on dates where, yeah, you just broke up with someone, you just stopped seeing someone, or you're just getting back in the market. And then you're just kind of like, you're kind of thinking about the other person. Or I've been there where, like I said, when I was Mr. 50 First Dates, like, oh, you can kind of find a problem, kind of just justify, like, kind of just checking out and not making an effort. And it's okay because, especially, it's your own mind. So it's very easy to, like, well, yeah, I'm right. Why do I need to do something else? Because you're right. And that's the problem is like you're justifying it to yourself versus finding a reason to believe and to get hooked into, hey, ladies, fellas, if you want good conversation on a date, you need to provide good conversation. If you want chemistry, you need to provide good chemistry. There's like a certain aspects when it comes to dating that you need to provide. And sometimes if it's not there, it's very easy to blame the other person. And that's kind of what comes in for gossip is if you're looking for a reason to check out, you can just justify it as a hunch. Let me start talking to people. What's the word on the street? Guess what? Everyone has a past. That's kind of the problem with gossip. The main problem with gossip is it ignores the fact that everyone has a past and can change. So you heard something and then are you going to take it as truth? There's some people who like have heard that story. It was just like, oh, I heard that you were dating the nurse who was an alcoholic, but she of course downplayed the alcoholic part. I heard that, but like I didn't necessarily believe it. And then we go out and we have a good time and we talk, and then they're like, yeah, I don't believe that. Like, oh yeah, you're definitely strong-willed. I can definitely see some of the stuff that you're saying, but it's not all true. Especially it's like, oh, they're putting some stank on that fastball of gossip because some people feel it that way, and that's fine. But yeah, the downfall of many relationships starting or continuing is gossip and the people who spread it. So if you want to be successful in a relationship, when you're just barely starting, please take the time to break away from the gossip. Get to know someone. People all have histories and skeletons in their closet. And if you're going to let someone drag out someone else's skeleton in front of you and be like, oh, to scare you off, I mean, that makes sense. I mean, I'd be scared off. But then wouldn't that be the same case if someone took my skeletons out of the closet and dragged them and paraded them around? So it's just trying to make sure that you're not holding someone to the standard that you're not willing to be held to yourself. If you're willing to put yourself out on Front Street with like, hey, here's this, here's this, here's this, you're not trying to make yourself look good, not trying to be the hero of your own story, oh man, that's fine. But that's not most of the people. And that's kind of why gossip is so pervasive, is because, yeah, like you feel like you're afraid. And so if someone can give you a little bit of information, you're probably going to try to take it and use it to justify your feelings. And maybe you're right this time, or maybe you're wrong. Trust me, try this. Keep a little tally of your hunches. Like literally write it down from big to small. And then you're going to see a pattern. Because I've seen people who justify their hunches, and it's just like, yeah, but so all of those girls were a problem? Because it sounds like the one common denominator is you. Or for women, all those guys were an issue. You were so great. I mean, I've seen people who were very outwardly pure is the best way to say that, where they're just like, hey, I like dating profile says I need someone who's really religious, must go to church with me on Sundays, and espouse their beliefs. And it's just like, okay, cool. For me, I learned a long time ago, I'm not putting some beliefs out in public. If anything's personal, you keep that private, because people will want to quiz you on it, want to judge you by it. So I talked, and this is another story time. I talked with someone who's very much super religious, super like one that held me to that standard. And then you find out of these skeletons in her closet, like big ones, which is like, you gave up how many babies and all this other stuff. And then like, ooh, you are not a good person. Like, for me telling you, that's gossip. But like, I found out from this person, and that kind of changed the whole dynamic. Just like, wait, what were you talking? Why were you telling me I had to go do all these things? And just like, but that's how you're living. This wasn't even like 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago. Some of this was 6 months ago. So that's kind of the problem with gossip, because for me, I found in that situation, I found out from that person then that, some of the stuff wasn't accurate, and some of that stuff wouldn't have been gossip, because they made sure to like tie the loose ends so no one knew. So like the dark stuff, you're not going to find out. But then the piddly nonsense, that's going to be everywhere, because that's what most gossip is, piddly nonsense, where it kind of ignores the major stuff and kind of just, oh, I found some stuff that's just like, yeah, hey, this person was like this person was like that. Oh, I saw them here, I saw them there. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of gossip, and I think it leads to bad dating. But what do you think? Please take the time to share your feedback. Let me know what you think about gossip. Has that been helpful for you? Maybe I'm wrong. I'm open to hear it. I'd love to do a follow-up on gossip in a later episode, and like share about like, hey, this was good gossip, or this was worthwhile. Or if you agree, let me know that too. All right. Please, like I said, take the time to subscribe on YouTube, subscribe on TikTok, subscribe on Instagram. I'm trying to make sure I'm as active on the various platforms and try to get better about that. But I do thank you for your time, and look forward to the next one.